Assalamu alaikum. Welcome to Islam for Deaf. We're with our special guest today in Jamaica, in Portmore. Our interpreter, as you can see, her name is Tony. Welcome, Tony, to Islam for Deaf Real Talk, where we'll talk about how is it like for the deaf community in Jamaica, how is it like as an interpreter, what experiences have you had, and just in general how it's like interpreting for the deaf community in Jamaica, faith-wise, community-wise, activities, even whether it's domestic or situations with the government or police, whatever the case may be. How is it like for the deaf community? And I think one of the best people to speak about it or to explain it will be an interpreter like our interpreter here, Tony, because Tony deals with different situations from the deaf community, whether it's personal, whether it's work, whether it's, like I said, faith-based, or this Tony will have much experience in. So this is one of the reasons why I wanted to interview our interpreter, Tony.
Hi.
So how you doing?
I'm good. How are you doing?
I'm fine, thank you. I'm going to leave all the signing to our interpreter, Tony, because I'm a bit rough around the edges. So, and Tony's a professional, so we'll leave it to the professionals. Alhamdulillah, praises be to God. We're happy to be in Jamaica. We're happy to invite the deaf community as an introduction. What is Islam about? It's best to hear it from people who practice their religion themselves, so they have like a more direct connection and better understanding of what Islam is about. So we're here in Jamaica doing a call. It's called Call to Tawheed, which is call to monotheism. Monotheism, call to the oneness of the Creator, without any other deities or any other influences. It's just more or less calling to Him with the understanding of the messengers which has been sent before. For example, the messengers of Adam, Noah, Ibrahim, Jesus, because we believe in Jesus as well, and the last prophet, Muhammad, who is the last prophet and who is our prophet for this time until the end of time. So we want to, inshallah, God willing, if any deaf people attend today, we'll be interviewing them and we'll be talking to them, and any questions that they have, we and our interpreter will do our best to answer them. So, how are you okay with that?
Yeah, man, I'm fine with that. I'm okay with that.
Okay. Just a few questions, and we'll start with the community.
Mm-hmm.
How many deaf people would you say is in Jamaica?
Well, we have a national census that says we have around 15% of the total population having a disability. And I think out of that number, you're looking at around maybe 1 to 2%. So culturally deaf, I'd say maybe 8,000, 9,000. Don't quote me on that, but around that amount. And then people who become deaf later in life, latent deafness, probably a lot more, like 300, 400,000.
Yeah, because as you know, as you get older, some people lose their hearing, some people lose their sight vision as well. So yeah, I can understand that. And plus, I know personally of people who have lost their hearing. The eardrums had an accident and it's popped their eardrum and they've become deaf. So the sign language interpreters and learning sign language is really a must, because it's something which we're not in control of, as you know. So do they teach sign language in schools?
No, that's actually something I think should be done in Jamaica. We tend to teach spoken languages, so we teach Spanish, we teach French. I even hear people learning Mandarin now. but nobody is really learning GSL or ASL or BSL. Nobody's learning that. That's something we're fighting for, the deaf community in Jamaica. I think it should be in all schools. I think all children should be exposed to GSL so that they're able to communicate with a fellow citizen before they can communicate with global citizens. That's my perspective. But I think the government is working towards that. We recently passed a Disabilities Act in 2014, but it was recently gazetted, which means starting now, February 14, 2022, which was last year. I had discussions with the Prime Minister of Jamaica, telling him that Jamaican Sign Language should become an official language. And if it becomes an official language, then you definitely have to teach children because it's an official language.
Okay, let's talk about Jamaican Sign Language, yes? I'm going to, do you mind? The aircon is okay? The aircon?
Yeah, man, it's okay. You want to turn it off? Too loud?
I was thinking that. Is okay with you? Okay, cool. So, Jamaican Sign Language. I'm familiar with British Sign Language, American Sign Language. What's the difference with Jamaican Sign Language? Because it's still English speaking, more or less, isn't it? Or is it different?
Halfway. So, JSL is influenced, of course, ASL and BSL is influenced by spoken language English, but JSL is also influenced by our own language, which is Patois.
What's this like, Patois?
Patois, right? Patois.
Like this?
Yeah. P, Patois.
Patois, okay.
Right. So many people would say, oh, but Patois is broken English. It's actually not. Patois came from African languages, from slavery. They spoke that way so that the masters wouldn't understand what they were discussing. So a lot of things that we say now that we think is broken English is actually not broken English, but it's actually from African languages. So if you go to some parts of Africa, you will hear them say words such as nyam, which we say, which is eat. So Patois influenced by African languages, which then influences Jamaican Sign Language. So for example, let me think of one. That body, that's Patois.
Again? Sorry. Sorry, you missed it. That was quick.
That was so. A lot of deaf people do that. So it has a lot of inferences behind it. So you can be talking about, you look really good. Somebody can see you and them go, because of how you dress. That body, you look good. Which is influenced from Patois and not necessarily English.
Right.
So hence, Jamaican Sign Language has an influence of more than one spoken language, English and Patois.
Right.
That's what makes it completely different. Well, not completely, I'd say 30. And we're influenced by British Sign, because some of the signs that I think the missionaries came to Jamaica back then and they taught British Sign, and then Americans came, and then so there's like a whole mix going on in Jamaican Sign Language.
Okay, that's interesting. That's interesting. I don't know.
Interesting.
Okay, that's interesting. Okay, that's good. Well, there's a bit of history to that as well, isn't it, in regards to slavery in Africa as well?
Yes.
Which is, I mean, you would think that because it's a language, it's a form of communication which derived, obviously, with us from Africa, so we took that with us. And it's interesting how it's gotten into sign language as well. It seems like a natural process.
It is. It is because if you think about the deaf community, it involves people who are hard of hearing.
Right.
And remember, hard of hearing people are exposed to spoken language. And if you're exposed to spoken language, so for example, I know this one deaf guy, he's hard of hearing. He listens to music all the time. And he listening to music then influences how he signs, which then goes back into the community.
Right.
So that's just how signing happens here.
Okay. And dealing with the community again in regards to faith then, how would you say faith influences the deaf community?
So I think they go where access is provided.
Right.
For Jamaica, heavy access is provided by Jehovah's Witnesses, the Kingdom Hall. They actually have deaf congregations, deaf assemblies, where everything is done in full JSL.
Okay.
They have an app that provides scripture reading in JSL.
Okay.
So because of that, deaf people tend to gravitate more to the Kingdom Hall. If other groups had provided that access, then they would go. So for example, Seventh Day
Adventist.
They have recently taken up sign language, and I've noticed that deaf people are now going there because they have access.
Right.
So it just really depends on what type of access you provide.
Right, because I've noticed I've been back and forth in Jamaica. I'm a Jamaican citizen, and my parents are from Spanish Town, Fraser's Content, random areas there. And I haven't come across any Islamic organization, masjid, or any program Islamically for deaf people here in Jamaica. Like you said, it's access really, isn't it? So if there's no one providing access, then there's not going to be, obviously, there's no one providing access, then deaf people are not going to know about it. So I think it's important that we all, whether you're deaf or hearing, have have access and have the opportunities that everybody else has, so therefore they can make an informed decision on what faith they want to go into, whether it's Christianity, whether it's Islam, but at least the awareness and the knowledge and the access to it is there, so they themselves can make a decision. And like he says, there's Seventh Day Adventists and there's other faith groups here in Jamaica that are providing the access, and the deaf are starting to attend, but there's nothing Islamic for. And have you heard of anything Islamic?
Not in Jamaica, no.
You never heard of no Islamic program for deaf people?
For deaf people in Jamaica, no. I don't know if internationally I have, but here, no. I would be aware if they had, I feel like. So no, I don't think deaf people access Islam
here in Jamaica, which is something that Islam for Deaf is 100% committed to helping to provide access for the deaf community, just so they can have awareness like everybody else, so they can make a decision. And like I mentioned earlier, it's better that they hear it from or have access to Islam from people who are practicing Islam. Yeah, it's the same with other faith groups. It's best that they learn about it from people who are practicing it, so they can make a decision whether they're interested in learning more about it or not, or want to leave it alone. But at least the access is there. What do you think about that?
I agree with you. As you said that, I remember that we have we have other groups of deaf churches. We have one in St. Elizabeth, Manchester side, and we have one newly formed in Kingston. That group has actually taken on something to translate the Bible into Jamaican Sign Language. Okay. And that's a full deaf group.
Translating the Bible into sign language?
Into JSL.
JSL.
They're actually having the launch in September this year. So deaf people go where access is provided. So if access is provided here, I'm sure you'll have deaf people showing up here.
Which is something that we definitely need to work on. Yeah, we need to work on. At least, every faith believes that their truth is with them. Every faith. So, if we say we have the truth with us, every faith will say that. And that's why they call to what they're upon. But if there's no one giving access to, like I said, a particular faith, then really, that's an issue. And the fact that I would say, being a Muslim, that we have, I would say what any other faith group would say, is that we have the truth with us. Yeah, which like I mentioned, every faith will say that. So therefore, we should at least provide access so they can make a decision themselves for it.
Mm-hmm.
Which we are working on, and I'm happy that you're willing to interpret for us as well, Tony. So I really do appreciate your help.
Mm-hmm. Access should be provided for everything. Doesn't matter. I mean, you as someone who can hear has access to everything. So why shouldn't a deaf person have the same access?
Yeah, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, we've dealt with faith. And some domestic. In regards to work, what's the because in England the deaf community for the most part are among the poor people, which is you can see that's obvious because the communication barrier.
Yeah? Same here.
It's the same in Jamaica.
Same here, yeah.
Okay.
Normally the poorer groups are deaf. I'm sure you have the same concept in England where you have a few deaf people who actually are successful to a certain standard of living, but most are on the poorer side here because of lack of access. Again, access
to work. Did the faith groups that have like work programs? Because I went to that Jamaican deaf
can coffee.
Yeah, and they're doing the making the books. And had workshops.
Jamaica Association for the Deaf Bindery.
Yeah. They're doing the books, and I actually bought some because I was well impressed. They had the different quotes in there, which I put them on the website so you guys can have a look as well. And if you're interested, you can make an order. They're really good, and it's supporting the deaf community. It's actually the deaf people that actually bind the books and make the books themselves in a workshop in where's it, deaf.
Up by Hope Pastures in Kingston, by Danny Williams School for the Deaf.
Yeah, School for the Deaf. So I'll put them on the website. You guys check it out. Yes, books are made and compiled by the deaf community to support the deaf community. So if you want to support that way, you can support that way, or you can make a donation to Team Jamaica, which is on the website. If you look down, you'll see it. All of this, as you can see, we're in Jamaica now, and we're doing the call to Tawheed, call to oneness of God, monotheism, with our interpreter here, Tony, and it's something that we want to have consistency in, God willing. So again, the books are there. Make a donation to support Team Jamaica, and inshallah, you'll see, God willing, you'll see the progress that we make. It will all be online as well. Okay, so we'll quickly round off this conversation here because we want to introduce the Imam of the masjid to talk about the community and make programs that they're doing as well. So we've talked about faith, we talked about domestic issues, talk about the work situation in Jamaica, and the numbers of how many approximately are in Jamaica. I think we've more or less covered everything, really, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't know if there's anything you say, but I think we covered it.
Yeah, we kind of made a good generalization. Yourself, and you can ask questions about me as well. How did I start off? Shall I go first?
Yeah, you go first.
Okay. All right. I was working with special needs, and there was a person who was deaf. They was with their interpreter, and they said they must have seen the beard, and they wanted to learn about Islam then. And the interpreter said that Muslims don't have anything for deaf people. We'll take it to the church and we carry on. So I knew a bit of sign language because I do Makaton, which is a form of sign language, but more so for those on the spectrum of autism and Down syndrome, and speech therapy and things like that. It's more known in the UK, but it's coming to America and Jamaica, God willing. So anyway, I'll give him my details, and I said we'll see what we can do in providing classes or something you can learn more about. And I couldn't find anything consistently providing programs for the deaf community. So we started off Islam for deaf, and alhamdulillah, for all praises due to the Creator, we now have a global audience, and we do weekly classes. We do special programs in Ramadan, which is the month we fasting, Islam, one of the 5 pillars of Islam. And we do regular programs, and we're going to keep on doing regular programs for the deaf community. And now that we're in Jamaica, we're going to keep that going. So that's like a summary.
Okay.
So yourself, I'm going to try and keep it to a summary as well.
Yeah, summary, yeah, definitely. So I am Antoinette Hakim, but more known as Tony. I grew up with deaf parents, so I'm a CODA, child of deaf adults. Really, I just fell into my purpose, I guess. I became an interpreter at the age of 17, 18. I'm professionally doing this now for almost 18 years.
Okay.
I have interpreted almost everything. I think this is probably the newest thing I'm doing, Islam. But I've interpreted almost everything from government to social to entertainment. That's pretty much my life. My life comprises of deafness and access to communication. And I've been doing that since I was a child. I've been providing access for my parents who are deaf because they never had access. And so I believe I'm living in my true purpose as an individual, and that's just who I am.
Okay. Okay. Quick question. Do you believe in God?
Yes, I believe in God, definitely. I believe that I can't make the sky. So that's one way I look at it, or how I explain to people. There are things that happen in my life that I know I don't control. I know that it's being controlled by God. So I definitely believe in God. Have I found the right place to worship? Maybe not. But I definitely believe in God.
Okay, well that's the main thing. That's 100%. That's like the pillar.
Yes. And
then you move forward from there. But like I said, you're more than welcome to the masjid here in Portmore. You're more than welcome to the sisters if you have any questions. And you have my details as well. So any questions. But as I said, we're going to do some classes today. We have our Imam with us, Abu Sama, who's going to be doing some classes later on. And what we would like to do for a little while is speak to the Imam of Masjid here in Portmore. His name's Shahid. And he'll do a brief explanation about the Masjid, how it comes about, how it benefits the community. And they'll welcoming everybody and future plans, what we have here. Future plans for the masjid and for the community here in Portmore. So we'll continue with that. Jazakallah khair.